Our next speaker, I met a few years ago. I got a telephone from California saying, I'm coming to New York, and could you get me a place to stay? And I grew up in New York, and I hear there's NA, and I want to come back. And I said, well, how would I know you? She says, don't worry, we'll know each other. And when she got off the plane, we knew each other. And she taught me something I'll never forget. You know, it's none of my business what God does with my life. You know, it's none of my business. And He runs the show, and she's special to me, and I'll give you Nona.
My name is Nona, and I'm a drug addict. Before I tell you a little bit about myself, I'd like to thank the committee for asking me to speak here. My friend Terry for submitting my name to the committee, and most of all, I want to thank God for getting me here. I think the longer I stay clean, the closer my kidneys move to my eyelids. Father Dan, or Father Egan, or Dan, or is a hard act to follow. I was really touched by it, you know. When I was a kid growing up, I grew up in Bedford-Stuyvesant, a real, residential neighborhood. I went to St. John the Baptist, and I used to think about what the priest used to tell in church, And I used to think, it's all good and well for them because they don't have to live like I do. They had a nice big fancy house across the street from the school. And they regularly had their booze delivered to the back door. And that's what I seen. And they didn't have to share a bedroom with 4 brothers and a sister and fight the cockroaches and all the other elements. And I only had a narrow scope on what people were, my interpretation of what I thought they were. And I'm sure there was a lot of Father Egans there. I just didn't see them. I used to think I was born in Canada because that's what my mother told me. But I don't know anymore, But my first recollection of this world was on 25th Street here in Manhattan. And my father was a New York cab driver. Has everybody met a New York cab driver? Try living with one after he's put in 12 hours. He was a good old guy. I'm trying to call him. See, I wasn't scared to get up here, and I wasn't nervous, But now I am, and I'm waiting to calm down a little bit. And so I always say a little prayer before I speak anywhere, even if it's at a small meeting, that God put the words in my mouth and the love in my heart and help me to tell the truth, because telling the truth is really important. When I got to this program, I thought I must have lived the most miserable childhood than anybody else in the whole world. I don't know how miserable it was, but I know it sure was long. It lasted 35 years. Now I look back at it, there was a lot of good things. Like I said, I had 5 brothers and a sister, and I had a father that drank most of the money and a mother that went to St. John's to play bingo on Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays, so there was very little left over for anything else. And I got a pair of shoes when the cardboard in the piece of shoes, when the piece of cardboard in the shoes I was wearing, the hole got so big it wouldn't hold the cardboard no more, so I got a pair of shoes. See, I'm really nervous. I don't know what the hell I'm saying. And I remember how embarrassed I used to be when the church would give us something, some old shoes that were left over, old clothes, but the thing that I remember embarrassing me the most was the pot of pea soup that we used to have to walk home from with. Good God. He better take over now, because I'm losing it. I need that, thank you. We've been here for 4 days, and we have praised people, groups, cities, years. I'd like everybody to give God a hand. You know what I found out around here? It's not because I love God that I am. It's because God loves me. And the concept of a higher power in my life, when I got here, was so distorted. It was like it was my mother's God. It was the church's God. It was a lady down the street who lost 2 sons in the service. It was her God. It was not a God that I wanted to recognize. It was not a God that I felt had ever done anything for me, I felt I could never turn to this God that they talked about, Because as far as I could tell, he was kicking ass, There were world wars, and I had a brother that was strung out on junk, and a father that drank most of the money up, and I lived in a hellhole, and they used to say, have faith, and I was going to try to save my money so I could go to the candy store and buy a box of faith. Because I just knew that there was some place you could get it. These people talked about faith. Like my sobriety and my cleanness, faith has been another gift. When I left New York, I weighed 96 pounds, and I was looked like what Dan was talking about, I had no more hustle left. I was too sick to turn tricks. I was too scared to steal anymore. And I knew, so my mother had went to California to visit a brother, that had been in the service, and she decided that we were going to live. She was going to live out there and take 2 younger brothers and a sister. And I had 3 little girls at that time, and she wrote to me and said, "Come to California. There's no dope there." I'm talking 1957. She said it was green and the sun shined and everything was beautiful. And you know, I didn't really want to leave New York, but I knew if I didn't, these 3 children would die because I couldn't take care of me and I couldn't take care of them. And that's what I did. I went to California, you know, and what happened was I picked up a drink. And when I picked up a drink, I used the drink just the way I used the heroin, you know, obsessively. I had singleness of purpose, and I found out that all the things that I had out there, I have here in this program. All the fierceness and all the things that were important to me then are still important to me today, you know. I wanted to be able to smile. I want to be able to dance. I want to have a good time. And those things are important to me today, you know. I can do all those things without drugs and alcohol, you know. And I didn't know that, you know. When I took that first fix or that first drink, I hadn't made a decision to become a junkie or an alcoholic, you know. I just wanted to turn off this thing inside of my head that the Father was talking about, like, you know, that my feelings are not always facts, you know, that I'm not good enough, I'm not pretty enough, I'm not tall enough, I'm not skinny enough, I'm not smart enough, you know. And I wanted to turn that off. And the chemicals allow me to do that, you know. They allow me to shut down on those inner voices. And the chemicals fill that hole inside of my gut. So I used them, you know. I used them until they used me, which is probably why we're all sitting in this room, you know. I love Narcotics Anonymous with a deep sense of gratitude, you know. I came to the 12-step program of Alcoholics Anonymous in a real small town in California, where I was the first junkie in that town to start cleaning up in AA, and it was really difficult. And so there wasn't any NA. But there was a man who spoke about his addiction and doing time in the penitentiary and shooting dope and that. And I followed him around for months. Every meeting that he spoke at, I would go and listen to him because I needed something to grab onto because I was afraid I wouldn't get to stay here. And then I started some meetings, and then I got loaded. After about 15 months of being in the program, I got loaded. And I feel like screaming. Thank you. If I did that, I wouldn't be able to talk. Maybe that'd do some good. I was doing better standing up here crying. Shit, I love you. You know, you're the people that picked me up and put me back together. You stood me on my feet and you said, walk. You had the courage to love me before I could love myself. You had the courage to say to me, if you don't do this, this, and this, you're gonna die using. I felt like I'd already died. I feel like right now God put you all in this room just for me. That's how selfish I am. What can I tell you that you don't already know? You know, you had to be degraded, you know. They say lock them up, put them away. We don't need them. And you said no, and this program said no, and God said no. We belong. We have arrived. And for every one person in this room, you'll touch 2 or 3. And whether they stay or not is their business. I don't have any causes to fight. No axes to grind. I feel there has to be a balance in this world. There have to be them and us. And I'm glad we're the us. I could tell you I put 10 Cadillacs in my arm. I'd probably be lying about 9. Used ones, that is. I could probably tell you I had a $500,000 tricks. I don't remember. You know, 5 years ago, after came back in the program, I had 2 years clean and sober. I was married at that time to a man who was a member of Alcoholics Anonymous, and he was a nice man, and I know that God puts every relationship in your life. I have nothing to do with that. And we came, I'd left here in 1963, and we came back to New York City, and we were coming across that bridge, and I looked at this town, and I was going to see it for the first time in my life without drugs or alcohol. And in the back of this motorhome, I had 4 big boxes full of NA literature coming from California, and this was 1978. And we'd been across the country, and we stopped in a lot of AA meetings, and every time I seen a dope fiend, I'd hand him a pamphlet and a meeting list for Los Angeles and San Francisco. And when I came here, you know, I wanted to clean this whole fucking town up in a week. I got to visit the World Service of Alcoholics Anonymous on Park Avenue at that time, and it was on a Thursday. And that seems to be the day that the staff meets and has their regular meeting. And they asked me to share at the meeting, and I did. And after the meeting, many of these people approached me and questioned me about Narcotics Anonymous, and I left them a bunch of literature. And they said they hoped that one day NA would be recognized in New York City, because they got so many calls from addicts seeking recovery. I was here for a few weeks at that time, and then I went back to California. I've been to a lot of conventions, and I'll probably be to a lot more. But this one is really important to me. Me and my brother shot dope in the streets. He's not here. I thought he would be last year. I thought he'd be sitting in this room too. That's what I get for thinking, huh? He's locked up again, you know. I used to think that things were good or bad. And I have a lady that God put in my life. She's my sponsor, and she has 23 years clean 2 days ago. And she says, Noni, she's from Texas. Things are neither good or bad, they just are. Her great message to me, maybe I'm not making any sense up here, but that don't matter. Her great message to me was, you don't take nothing even if your ass falls off. And in 7 years, I felt like it has a few times. I've reached down and put it back up. Anyway, I was in Wichita a few years ago, and some people heard me there, Rose, and they called me and asked me if I would be a spiritual speaker in Florida. And at that time, I shared the podium with a minister. I'm telling you. And I said it would be a privilege. But I wanted to come back to New York. I was divorced now from that very gentle man that I had learned so much from. And a friend of mine, Greg, Jimmy knows him real well. He helped Jimmy quite a bit at the office in Los Angeles. Told me that he'd been to the convention on the East Coast in Jersey or someplace, and he'd met a lunatic named Terry Ryan. And that he had his number, and if I wanted to give him a call, maybe he could set up where I could have a place to stay, because I have a brother in the island. I have a lot of cousins and that here, but I wanted to be here with people in NA. Okay, so I gave Father Ryan, I call him, a call, and he said he'd see what he could set up, and he called me back in a couple of days, and he said, well, he says, I couldn't set nothing up, he said, but he says, I got a couch that makes into a bed, and he said, if you don't mind staying there, he said, I said, no, I don't have any kind of hang-ups about that, that'd be fine. And like he said, when I got off the plane, I knew who he was immediately, it's not like there ain't no junkies in Kennedy Airport, but there's hardly any clean ones. And I knew that I would recognize Terry, So I came here, and where's Val? And Terry, I don't know if it was Tuesday or Wednesday night, and Terry said, we're going to have an NA meeting. Would you share the meeting then? And I said, oh, I'd be glad to. And we went into the meeting, and a little bit before the meeting, we were discussing about if you take a chemical, you don't talk at group level, right? And that's how new that all was here 2 years ago, To say the least, I didn't make a lot of friends that night at the meeting, or the next night. There was a young man that came over to me, and after the meeting, because I didn't call on him, he sat in the back raising his hand. And before the meeting started, I had said, if there's anybody in this room that's taken any mind-altering chemicals, including methadone, alcohol, or weed, please refrain from talking at the meeting. And this young man was in the back of the room, and he was... I shined him. I didn't, and after the meeting he came over, he says, I got a resentment against you. And I said, when you clean up, we'll deal with it. Terry came to California last year and spent a week over there visiting with me. He went to the NA convention in Santa Cruz and spent some time. And he says, he made a phone call. He said, I want you to say hello to somebody. And I said, okay. So I got on the phone. And it was the very guy that I shined in the back of the room. He was coming up on a year's sobriety. I don't remember all that he said, but It was kind of like this. He said, I was so goddamn mad at you, he says, that I just knew I had to clean up so I could talk at a goddamn meeting. I think Sal will have 2 years pretty soon. That's how this thing works, you know. You know what? We're all God's kids. Because if there's one person in this room that isn't, then none of us are, you know. And that God loves us unconditionally at all times, always has, you know. I'm perfect in my imperfection, you know. God, you're a beautiful group, you know that? All my life I wanted to be loved and accepted, and that's what I was searching for, you know. I am a spiritual seeker. This is a spiritual program that fills my spiritual need, you know. I've read a lot of books, you know. I've been able to quiet myself down to read, you know, because I want more information. Just like I wanted more dope, you know. I want to feel, you know. And in all those books, the one thing that stands out in my mind is that we ought to love one another, you know. We ought to love one another. And at times I know that's real hard, especially when you're putting on a convention. Because the egos all get out there. Boing, 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 boing. I really don't have anything more, you know. I want to leave you with some pearls of wisdom. Gosh, I wish he would have saved that song for me. I wish he would have saved that song for me. I'm glad I really got to meet the Father, aren't you? And it's really like he was saying, you know, we'll go from these rooms back to our towns and our cities and our states and take a piece of what it is here with you, you know. Take the strength we have gathered in these 4 days and the wisdom and the knowledge, because we all have it, you know. We're all teachers and we're all students, you know. We are here to receive from one another. We don't have to take anymore. You know. And God is the only giver. You know, God is the only giver. Because if I could give this sobriety, cleanness, whatever, to another human being, I would. You know, I'd start distributing it in my own family, to my own kids, to that brother that's locked up. The day before I flew out here, which I've been here for about 10 days visiting a brother out in the island and cousins, I went up to, I got a call from Salinas. I was living in Gilroy at the time, and it was from my sister, and 7 o'clock in the morning, she said, Gary's in a private place kicking heroin. Gary's my young nephew. And my sister-in-law called her and said she was desperate and could you go talk to him. And I says, does Gary want me to talk to him? You know, that's the, you know, that's what normal people don't understand. You know, we all know about spinning wheels to the attic, who goes out and takes the fix because he's not through, whatever the fix is. We carry the message, we don't deliver it, you know. But I went there, and I don't think I was any great comfort to anybody, because I let the hospital know that I was there in town, and if my nephew wanted to talk to me, he had about an hour and a half to get in touch with me, because I was in the process of moving, packing to leave. And he never called. And my sister-in-law, I told her, I said, there was a pamphlet out one time, I don't even know if it's still around. So You Love an Addict? Is it still around, Jimmy? And it tells you the things not to do. You know, don't give me a place to crash, don't bail me out, you know, so on. Out of love and concern, and maybe guilt in some cases, our parents, our friends, our family in general, help pad the bottom, so, you know, to make it easier for us. And easy is killing us, you know. Easy is killing us. And so I told him the simple truth as I understand it, you know. Let go. She couldn't understand that one. So what I have for her is my prayers, you know. And what I have for him is my prayers, you know. Because I know it must have been a hell of a lot of rosaries said for me. You know. You know. And in the darkness of the night, wherever it was, I screamed out, you know, that prayer. What in the fuck is wrong with me? You know, why can't I get it together like the other kids? They show up at school, you know. They join the Girl Scouts. They run for the bagels and the Kaiser rolls on Sundays. You know. You know. I was so afraid of people that I spent most of my time sitting behind the cellar door with the cockroaches and the rats in the dark, and I was petrified of those insects and those little critters and that dark. But I was more petrified of you. It was easier to stay back there, you know. I'm out in the light now, you know. God says I don't have anything to fear but my own thinking, you know. I found that to be the truth, you know. I'm not responsible for my thoughts, but I sure as hell am responsible for the entertainment of them. And, it's like they've been yelling in the lap, keep coming back, you know. Like Jimmy said, I ain't going nowhere. Last night was, you know, I guess we all get jacked up about that person that got that one day. If we could give them all that energy that was in that room last night, that son of a bitch would never use the next 10,000 years. We're here. That's true. But who wants to be? It's not the there that counts, it's the getting there. Next month, you know, I always feel cheated. I think, you know, sure how self-centered I am. I always think they had the conventions, the world conventions in September, so because my birthday's in October. And I always have to fall 1 month short of standing up, like, you know, of that year. But by the grace of God, I'll have 7 years next month. And I'm impressed with that, because you know what? I know where I came from. I know my story. you know. And for 365 days, for almost 7 years, I made a decision, consciously or unconsciously, not to take nothing. And at times, I felt that I wanted to die, you know. I have experienced pain that is unbelievable, but you know what? It's all right. Because to get from A to B, sometimes you just gotta kind of crawl there, you know. You just gotta kind of crawl there. And it's all about, you know, that normal people get up and they go to work at 9 and get off at 5, and they face difficulties and they face problems and they deal with them, and, you know, they go on. And that was not so for me, you know. I'm learning to do those things today, you know. I've abused and used all I intend to, you know. And I often wonder, what am I going to be when I grow up? My friends, Kathy and Dick, say they just want to be like me. Isn't that nice? I never met anybody that wanted to be like me. They gave me a phone book last night and a dime, and they told me to find somebody in it that cared. And you know what? At one time that would have hurt my feelings. I'd still be looking in the book. I came into town last Friday night, and my cousin met me and my man, and we went to her house, and Saturday, over 40 relatives showed up, and we had a family reunion. 40 others couldn't come, and that, you know, half of them are in California and wherever, in Florida, and it was nice, you know. It was really nice. I got to see them, and we got to share with each other. I have an older brother that lives out in Patchogue, and he came, and I haven't seen him in 2 years, but 2 years ago when I see him, he was able to stand up and put his arms around me and give me a hug, you know. And he said to me at that time, "Do you think I'm an alcoholic?" And I told him I thought so. But he had to make that decision for himself, and he should try Alcoholics Anonymous. Well, he couldn't put the bottle down, so the bottle put him down. He had a sugar diabetes, he had a stroke last year, and he'll never walk again. So he didn't stand up when he seen me this time, you know. This disease gets us, you know, in a lot of different ways, you know. It got me in jails, it got me in institutions, it got me in back seats of cars, run down, piss in the sink, hotels, beatings, you know. It got me, all of that, you know. And I know today that I don't ever have to use again, one day at a time, you know, with the help of you people and God as I do understand Him, you know. When I first came around here, they'd say, God as you understand Him. I used to say, well, God as I don't understand. But I understand God today, you know. It's just I don't understand Nona sometimes, you know. She's the ass kicker. I want to just tell you, be good to yourself. You don't ever have to use again for the rest of your life. One day at a time, you know. I love you.
I'm choked up, man. My name is Terry. I'm an addict, and this became my impossible dream. It started when I met a few lunatics down in Florida, and they showed me, drug addicts could recover, and I walked into that 11 World Convention. I seen all the dope fiends, like I said the other night, rocking and rolling, having a good time and recovering. And it's like I said, we got to get this back in New York, and thank the God and you people, we did it. And they sell a lot of different brands of dope in New York. Death, Suicide, and a few other names. And people came here to comp something they could never comp on the streets. The impossible dream turned into the possible dream. And like I said before, we got to take it back from wherever we came from. That no addict may die seeking recovery. And I just like to thank God for putting all you beautiful people in my life and helping me stay clean and sober one day at a time. And we close in a beautiful way. And if Father Dan Egan would like to come up and lead the prayer.
Make one big circle here. Make a big one. Go for it, Dad. Make a big one. Come up over here. Make a fucking big one. Come on up over here.
All right, make a big circle around. Come on, make a big circle, quick. We got to get out of here, Stone. You slow, you blow.
It's possible.
Let's end this convention with a dynamite prayer of our connection.
Please remember in saying this that God is your Father, not a judge. He's your Father. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us today our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. Keep coming back.
All right, I got a few announcements. You want to listen up?